Hello everyone. As part of video lectures on rock mechanics and strata control, in this lecture I'm going to cover a few more topics present as part of chapter 3. Okay. Before we start, let's recap what we discussed in earlier video lecture, like the determination of unconfined or uniaxial compressive strength of rock mass. Then we discussed about the plotting of stress versus strain graph, and determination of Young's modulus, because after performing the uniaxial compressive strength, we will be getting for various values of stress and the corresponding strain we need to measure. From that, like we need to plot the stress versus strain graph. So upon plotting the stress versus strain graph, okay, like we'll be calculating the Poisson's ratio. Like Poisson's ratio, basically the definition of Poisson's ratio indicates like what is the ratio of lateral strain to the longitudinal strain. So we'll be calculating the Poisson's ratio, and upon knowing the stress and the Poisson's ratio and the stress versus strain, we'll be calculating the Young's modulus of the specimen. Not only Young's modulus, using this information, we can calculate other two modulus of elasticity, like what you call the rigidity modulus as well as the bulk modulus of elasticity. Okay, this is about the unconfined compressive strength. Next, coming to the triaxial test or confined compressive strength. As the name indicates, what it's a triaxial, nothing but the stress will be acting in all the three directions of the given rock specimen. So, or the confined is nothing but it is confined from all the directions. That's why it is called the confined compressive strength. Okay, so in case the triaxial test basically represents the in situ state of stresses, state of stresses acting on a rock mass, because the exactly in situ condition is being represented in the laboratory, and we can perform various tests on top of it using triaxial test. So in order to carry out the triaxial test, we need to know we should have the following laboratory equipments, like triaxial cell construction, triaxial cell, and next one is how to perform what you call the test using triaxial cell box. So these topics we covered as part of earlier video lecture. Next, let's move on. In this video lecture, okay, these are the following are the topics which we are going to discuss. Like first one is the methods of determination of shear strength of rock specimen. Like how to determine the so far we discussed about the compressive strength, like uniaxial compressive strength and the or unconfined compressive strength. And the second one we discussed about confined or triaxial test of the rock specimen. Now in this video lecture we are going to cover what you call shear strength of the rock specimen. In shear strength, there are different methods. In determination of shear strength, there are different types of different methods that we will be using it. One is a single shear test. Second one is double shear test. Third one is punch shear test. And fourth one is oblique shear test. These are the four methods of determining the shear strength of the rock specimen. Okay, we'll be discussing in detail each one of them. Next one is next we will discuss about what you call the methods of determination of tensile strength of the specimen. Like again in the tensile strength there are what you call shear stress is nothing but what the stress that will be acting along the failure plane. It's like what you call two forces, like it is sliding fail. What is the force that that will be acting, that is called shear stress. Whereas in case of tensile, what exactly it is one? Tensile nothing but I think hope you all know it. But just to recap, let's say this is a block of rock mass, and the force which is acting like this, yep, this is known as a what you call the tensile. Okay, whereas coming to the shear, this is what it is. Suppose there is a failure plane. Okay, and the forces which are acting like this is acting like this one force, a force which is acting like this. This is called shear. This is called shear force, guys. No, this is all called tensile. So That's right. So as part of this video lecture, we'll be discussing like, okay, how to perform or how to determine the shear strength of the rock specimen. Next, the tensile strength. Okay, these the forces which are acting on the planes away from it, that is, they are of tensile nature. So there are two methods of determination of tensile strength of the rock specimen. One is the direct method. Second one is what? Indirect method. So we'll be discussing, okay, why we why we go for indirect method. What are the disadvantages? What are the problems that we might come across using direct method of tensile strength? Then why the indirect method is so popular? Okay, those topics will be discussed in detail. Next, let's move on. Clear this. Clear all my points. Okay. Then we'll discuss about what do you call after completing a discussion on this. Okay, yeah. Let's then we'll further discuss about the what you call the different methods of rock mass classification. These are all very important from mining point of view, because in order to assess the stability of the rock mass in underground mines, we must know there are what you call different characteristic features. For that, actually, in order to analyze the behavior of the rock mass under various conditions, there are different indices. Like there are some kind of measuring indices. Using this, okay, we can measure like whether how exactly the strata behaves. So few of them are those are all they are categorized under rock mass classification. Like the following, these are the different methods of rock mass classification which we will be discussing as part of this video lecture. One is RQD. RQD is nothing but rock quality designation. Next, what is the classification of RQD? Then we'll be discussing about rock mass rating, RMR. Okay, and what are the facts? What you call factors that influence RMR? Then we'll discuss about the RMR classification. Next, we'll discuss about the Q system, which is also known as the tunnel quality index, and how like what are the factors that factors influence the Q mass classification, and the formula for Q system, what formula that we'll be using after what you call determine the various parameters of it, how to get the value of Q system. Next, the Q system classification and the range of classification. Okay, these are all the topics, okay, which I'll be covering as part of this video lecture. Let's move on. Like determination of shear strength of the rock specimen. As I said, shear strength is nothing but this is a kind of particular strength that will be acting along a plane of its failure, right? Let us see. Just a minute. Let me draw it again. Just to understand is better. Okay, like this. Suppose let's say there is a failure plane. I don't want this. Okay. So like this. Let's say this is a failure plane. The forces which are acting like this. One is like this, and another one is like this. So this is called the shear stresses. Okay. So the first one is what? The single shear test. In single shear test, the rock specimen gets failed at a single location. Look at here. If I apply the force, it gets failed at this location. Am I right? Like this, it gets sheared off. Like this, it gets sheared off. Or it's the other way around. If I'm not wrong, just a minute. It will be like this, and this will be like this. So this is where it is getting sheared off. So in case of single shear with the application of this force, this is where it gets sheared off. So in single shear test, the rock specimen gets failed at a single location with the application of the load. So the formula for single shear test is equal to, because it gets failed only at a single location. So the formula for single shear test is equal to tau, single test strength, that is equal to P. P is nothing but the applied load, shear load applied. And A is the cross-sectional area of shear failure surface of the rock specimen where it gets failed, this portion. That is a cross-sectional area of that specimen, failure portion of the rock specimen. So P by A will give the value of shear strength of this rock specimen using shingle shear test. Okay, let's move on. Okay. In case of double shear test, say in case of double shear test, okay, there is a separate device that will be using it. So the rock specimen gets failed at two different locations. For example, let's say I got something like this, and let's say I have placed my specimen like this inside this. Now I'm applying a force. Let's say this is a force, and I'm just trying to draw it. Okay. Now what happened? See here, if I apply the load on top of this, if I apply the load, okay, so this is the load P. This is the load P. P is the applied load. So with this application of this load, what happens in case of double shear test? In case of double shear test, it gets failed like this. Let me choose something different color. It gets failed like this. Right? So the shear failure is being taking place at two different locations, two locations. So that's why it is called double shear test. See, in case of double shear test, the shear force will be applied at two cross-sectional area of the specimen at this location and at this location. If I apply this, it fails like this, and it will pass on through this one. There will be a hole. Okay, it gets failed like this, right? This is the specimen. This is what the specimen is. Okay, so it gets failed at this location. So the formula for double shear test is P by 2A. Because why 2A? Because it got failed at two different locations. That's why we the area is twice of that. Okay, next one is punch shear test. This is the third method of determination of shear strength of the rock specimen. Okay, look at here. In order to perform, okay, in order to perform punch shear test, specially manufactured device is required. Okay, I will see how exactly that device looks like. The rock specimen is subjected to shear failure with the creation of punch hole due to application of force. What exactly that? So look at here. Okay, this is about the punch shear test. Look at here. This is what the punch. Right? If I place this is the rock specimen. Right? It creates a whole kind of thing here. Here the hole will be get created. It's something like a punch. We are doing it. Okay, that's what. So it's get failed at this entire area because if this is a rock specimen of this nature. Let's say this is a rock specimen, some disc kind of thing. So due to punch, what happens is it creates a small hole kind of thing at the center. Okay. Sorry. Something of this sort. Assume that this hole got created in the center. This is a kind of what? Punch. That's why it is called punch shear test. Okay. Okay. This is a punch head which it will be like this, and like this is where the sample and it's get punched off at this location. Okay. The formula to determine what you call shear strength by punch shear test is equal to tau is equal to P by pi dt. What is D now? D is nothing. P is the applied load in newtons. D is the diameter of the punch hole. Diameter of the punch hole. That is what the capital D is. T is nothing but the thickness of the specimen. What exactly is the thickness here? Just a minute. Let me look into this. Yes, this portion. This is called thickness. This is the thickness of the specimen. So this is the thickness of the specimen. D is the diameter of the punch hole. This is what. This is called capital. So D is the diameter of the punch hole and T is the thickness of the specimen. So the formula to determine shear strength by punch shear test is equal to P by pi dt. Okay. So let's move on. Let me clear all drawings. Okay. Next one is, see, so far we have covered what you call single shear test, double shear test, punch shear test. Next one is oblique shear test. Nothing but it is a what you call the oblique shear test. In this, what you call, it's a specially manufactured device, okay, in which the specimen will be what you call the shear force will be applied along an oblique plane or along an oblique direction. So that's what it is. So this is the specimen. Look at here, this is a laboratory specimen. Okay, this is what the specimen I have placed it. This is what the laboratory equipment. When I apply this load, what happens? These jacks will move. And what happens? The force, it will get sheared off at these locations. Like this, it will get sheared off. This is what it is, right? So this is another view of the same machine. See, in oblique shear test, the force will be applied along oblique direction so that rock specimen fails along oblique angle, along certain angle. That's why it is called the oblique shear test. Okay, so this is what the diagram of it. Let's move on. So this is another diagram, laboratory diagram of it. Look at here, due to application of this, as I said, this gets sheared off. Here it is getting sheared off. So that's what it is. It's getting sheared off now. So it's got failed. So this is where it got failed. Okay. So the formula to determine oblique what you call shear strength by oblique shear test is tau is equal to P is the load applied, A is the cross sectional area, the cos 45 degrees. Because why 45 degrees? Because look at here. In this case, this device, whatever the angle it is making, this is a 45 degrees. That's why cos 45 degrees. Okay, cos 45 degrees. This is a formula that we'll be using to determine shear test, oblique shear test of the specimen. Okay, so these are the four different types of what you call determination of shear strength of the rock specimen. Next, let's move on to the tensile. Tensile. So what is tensile now? So let's see. In case of tensile, okay, the forces will be acting away from that. We choose something different color. Yes. It will be like this. It should be arrow. Like this, like this. These forces we need to find out. Okay. See, the rock is always weak in tension. It is always weak in tension because if you look at the three different strength analysis of the rock specimen: compressive, what you call tensile, and shear. Out of which, generally depending on the nature of the rock mass, the compressive strength will be maximum because it has to be crushed. Next, coming to the hierarchy, highest one is the compressive one. Next, coming in the strength that comes in the hierarchy is what you call shear strength. And the least one is what you call tensile. So that's the reason the rock is always weak in tension. So this question you might come across in the examination. Like what you call what is it? Okay, compression. This will be always more than that of shear, which will be again always more than that of what you call tensile. So this is what the hierarchy. Okay, if you look at the strength-wise classification of a given rock specimen, generally the compressive will be more, then the next comes is highest one is the compressive one. Next one is the shear, and the least one is what you call tensor. So the rock mass is always weak in tension. Next, there are what are the different methods of determination of tensile strength of the specimen? So there are two different methods. One is called the direct method. Second one is called indirect method or Brazilian method. So what is direct method now? Let us see. In direct method of measurement of tensile strength, the rock specimen will be held by a specially manufactured holding devices. So there are holding devices which will pull the devices, and the force will be applied in the lateral directions. That's why we are directly applying the force and trying to find out it's a tensile strength. That is why it is called direct method. So it requires, as the sentence says, what it requires specially manufactured holding devices. In the direct method of measurement of tensile strength, the rock specimen will be held by a specially manufactured holding device. Okay. Next one. In this method, with the help of holding devices, tensile force will be applied at the ends of the rock specimen. Like at the ends, this tensile force will be applied. So it would be something like this. Put it like this. This is my holding device. Trying to apply this, and this is another my holding. I'm just trying to illustrate it. This is how we are applying it. Let's say this is one holding device, and you are applying this force like this. This method is called direct. Okay, so in this method, with the help of holding devices, tensile force will be applied at the ends of the rock specimen. At the ends of the rock specimen. That's what it is. Next, due to application of the force at the ends of the specimen will not give exact value because you are applying at the ends. If it went, that's where it got failed actually. Why it got failed? Because with the direct method, if you apply, since in the force that is applying, it is not acting uniformly across the specimen. Sometimes it might fail something, somewhere here itself. Let's see here. Let me draw this. I'll use a different color here. Okay, yeah. Might got failed like this, which may or may not be the exact representation of the shear, what you call tensile strength of the specimen. If the whole grip is here and whole gripping is what you call the holding device grip on the specimen is at this location as well as this location, that is nothing but the effective stress will be acting on the edges of the opening. Sorry, on the edges of the specimen. So that is the reason it may not give the true picture of what you call the exact tensile strength of the specimen. Look at here. Due to application of force at the ends of the specimen will not give exact value of tensile strength of the specimen. Okay. Hence, the direct method of measurement of tensile strength failed under practical conditions. That's what I say. It is very difficult. It requires a specially manufacturing devices. The holding devices were placed at the edges of at the ends of the opening. When you apply the force, since the force is not acting uniformly across the specimen, okay, it may or may not give the exact value of this tensile strength of the specimen. So most of the times it fails. That is the reason. Okay, this method is not in practical. Okay, let's see. Let me clear all drawings. Mouse. Okay. See, this is about the the laboratory setup of laboratory setup of the direct method of tensile strength. Look at here. These are the specially manufactured holding devices, jacks kind of thing. Look at here. This is an elaborate view of the same. This is the specimen. This is one holding device, and this is another holding device, and you are trying to apply the force on the either side of it, right? So this is one, and the second one is, look at here. This is another one, an enlarged view of the same thing in a different machine. Like, okay, this is one holding device, right? This is one holding device, and this is another holding device, and you are applying the force like this. Okay, so as a result, what happened? It fails somewhere. So this is another one, different type of holding device, and trying to get the information. This is another view of it. Let's say, let me put it that way. This is another view of this one, same specimen. So this is how it is. Okay, in laboratory, this is how the holding devices are attached to the specimen. Let's move on. Okay, this is another one. Look at here. In case of direct method, yes, this is all the what you call, this is a sample, and these are all the cylindrical what you call this cylindrical sample. This one. These are the metallic caps of the holding devices here, and you are attaching these two holding devices attached at the ends of the specimen and trying to apply the force. This is another what you call the this one, laboratory instrument used in the laboratory. Just to give what you call more view on how exactly this experiment is being performed in the laboratory. Like these are all the laboratory setups. Okay, look at here. This is what the specimen is, and these two are the what you call the holding devices. And whenever you are applying the force, right, it will pull out the specimen and in the both the directions. As a result, what happened? It fails somewhere, which will give what the tensile strength of the specimen by direct method. This is the vertical the setup that is used to carry out the vertical tensile strength uh, testing operation using direct method. Okay, let's move on. So this is another what you call laboratory uh, equipment installation where it contains what the direct holding devices. This one, this is a complete view of it. It's a kind of UTM kind of machine where you are applying the force here. These are the separately manufactured holding devices. You kept your instrument and you are applying like this force. What happens now? It fails. So this is a laboratory setup to carry out the to carry out the tensile strength test operation using direct method. Okay, let's see. Next, what are the disadvantages of what called a direct method of tensile strength? So, as I said earlier, it is difficult to manufacture holding device which exerts uniform tensile force on the specimen. It is very, very, very difficult to manufacture the holding devices, guys, which will be so it is difficult to manufacture holding device which exerts uniform tensile force on the specimen, right? So whatever the holding is, it has to exert uniform pressure, which will be exact measure of tensile strength. Okay, next, the tensile strength of the specimen measured is a not a true measure of it's a tensile strength. Nothing but whatever the tensile strength that you measured using the direct holding devices, it may not be correct. The above problem is overcome, or our problem is overcome by performing the tensile strength using indirect method. That's what I am saying. So what are the problem? It's not giving the accurate results, and it is very difficult to manufacture the holding devices. So these problems are overcome by adopting what indirect method of carrying out the tensile strength. Now. So the indirect method of tensile strength test. It is also known as Brazilian test. It is also known as what? Brazilian test. This is very, very important, guys, from the examination point of view, because not only that, from the field implementation point of view, also this is very important because this is one of the what you call most widely used experimental setup to carry out the testing of tensile strength of a given specimen. Next, see here the problem of direct method of tensile strength test to manufacture specially manufactured holding devices can be overcome by indirect method. Okay, it is also known as Brazilian test. The Brazilian test is a simple indirect testing method to obtain the tensile strength of brittle material such as concrete, rock, and rock-like materials. Okay, next one, due to simplicity and efficiency, it is most commonly used laboratory testing method in geotechnical investigation of rocks. Okay, in this test, so as I said, like this is a kind of what simple instrumental setup and for effective testing operation. So that's what it is. Next, due to simplicity and efficiency, it is most commonly used laboratory testing method in geotechnical investigation of rocks. In this test, a thin circular disc, because the rock sample that is using that we are going to use to perform the indirect method of tensile strength test. It is of what? Circular disc and is diametrically compressed to failure. We'll discuss this further in the coming slides. Okay, 4 typical loading configurations are shown. See here, as I said, the rock specimen is of what? It is of circular disc, and the load will be applied diametrically opposite, so that it will be compressed diametrically, and which leads to failure. So there are four different ways we can load the what you call the cylindrical disc or the circular disc. Okay, look at here. Let me experiment. Yes, this is a loading platen. Here again some steel rods are placed at this location, only the load will be applied. Here some cushion kind of thing is placed and the load will be applied. And the curved loading jaw, in which, because this exactly suit to the what you call to the specimen, to the cylindrical disc, rock cylindrical disc. Okay, curved loading jaw. So these are the what you call different what you call the holding devices. Okay. Generally, we'll be using to carry out this one. Generally, we'll be using is of curved loading jaw. See, you can look at here. This is a loading pattern A, and the second one is what? Loading pattern with the steel rods is placed. At this location only the force will be applied. Next, loading pattern in the flat surface with what? Some kind of cushion at both ends. Next one, this is curved loading jaw. This is the curvature exactly fit to the what you call the cross section of the or the curved surface of the cylindrical disc. That's how it is. So generally, this kind of device, what you call the device setting, is being used to carry out the laboratory experiments. Okay. Next, the indirect tensile strength is typically calculated based on the assumption of failure occurs at a point of maximum tensile stress. That is at the center of the disc. This we'll see. The what exactly is? Let me repeat this. The indirect tensile strength is typically calculated based on the assumption that the failure occurs at the point of maximum tensile stress. At the point of maximum tensile stress, nothing but at the like this. That is at the center of the disc. Let's see. Okay, let's see here. Brazilian test operation apparatus. The instrument is useful for testing specimen from 50 mm diameter to 100 mm diameter, because as I said, the rock specimen we will be using to carry out the tensile strength operation is of circular disc. So the diameter of the disc varies from how much? 50 mm to 100 mm, and the thickness is half of the diameter. Thickness is generally 0.5 to 0.6 times of the diameter. Okay, look at here. The specimen is the specimen is held in circular jaws. This is primarily similar to a compression in nature, because we will be carrying out this one. This I'll elaborate in the coming slides. Like there we have got the pictorial diagrams. Okay, the specimen is held in a circular jaws, and this is primarily similar to a compression machine, and consists of small load frame having sturdy base with the two vertical threaded rods and adjustable cross head. Okay, it's a specimen. That's nothing but the specimen is being placed. Look at your two circular jaws. These two. This is what it is, right? So here, what happens now in this diagram? Even though you are applying the load like this from the top to bottom, which is of compressive nature, but it fails at the center by means of what? Tensor. This is how the loads are acting. So nothing but by applying the what you call the load which is of compressive nature, we are determining the corresponding what you call tensile strength in an indirect way. In a lateral direction, this force is acting, right? So for this, this value will be determining it. So that's why it is called indirect method of determination of tensile strength of the specimen. So here, this is what exactly it is. Look at here. Let's go back to the previous slides. One second. This is what this particular sentence says. Look at here. This specimen is held in a circular jaws. This is primarily similar to the compression machine, right? Okay, and consists of small loading frames having sturdy base and a strong base with the two vertical threaded rods and adjustable crosshead. It's something like what? Even though you are applying the compressive force, but indirectly you are measuring the tensile strength of the specimen. So the hydraulic jack is fitted at the center of the base of the load frame. The jack of the load frame is self-retracting, and two plain platens are supplied. The pressure gauge capacity, how much it can measure? 0 to 100 kilonewtons fixed at the base of the jug. The maximum pointer, this is all about the instrument actually, how exactly the operator looks and what are the various features of it. The maximum pointer is also provided on the gauge. A pair of semicircular platens for 50 mm diameter samples also provided. Okay, these instruments can be used in field also. This we can, since it's a portable kind of instrument, which can be easily carried to the what you call the field, and there itself we can carry out the testing. So that's what it is. Let's see. Yeah, this is what the instrument is. So this is the circular platens. Okay, this is where the load is being applied. This is the laboratory equipment. Okay, this is what I just what you call, we just discussed in a few minutes back. What do you call a load in this case? What is, since it is called the indirect method, nothing but even though you are applying the load which is of compressive nature, but will be determining what you call the tensile, corresponding tensile strength of the specimen in an indirect way. That is why it is called the indirect method of determination of tensile strength of the specimen. Next one is, this is another instrumental setup. Okay, in which what this is what the load we are applying it, and then it's going to feel something like this. Okay, these diagrams I have included as part of this video lecture, because even though if you don't have laboratory or any kind of if you have not performed any laboratory, still I wanted you guys to have some basic idea like how exactly these tests are being carried out in the laboratory. So this is another laboratory equipment. Two platens, this, and this is where it is. The load will be applied, and this is this dial gauge which is used to measure how much what you call the load that is being applied on the failure surface before it fails. Next procedure. In the Brazilian test, a disc-shaped specimen of rock is loaded by two opposite normal strips. Loads at the disc periphery. That's nothing but this is how it is, right? At the disc periphery, you're applying the load. Okay. Next, the specimen diameter shall be preferably not less than NX core size. As I said, right? This is a kind of what you call this NX is nothing but the core size that we'll be getting after by using diamond drilling. Okay, during exploration process. There are different types of core specimen: NX, BX, X series, NX, BX, AX, EX, out of which NX is the maximum one. So as per ISRM standards, yes, we need to use the preferable core size is of diameter, having diameter how much of NX size, which is of 54 mm. Okay, or at least 10 times of the in case if you won't get it, it must be at least 10 times the average grain size. Next, the thickness to diameter ratio, how much should, because since the specimen that we'll be using, it is of disc shape, so how much should be the thickness should be what, half of the diameter or of more than half. That's nothing but 0.5 to 0.6 times of the diameter of the specimen. Thickness to diameter ratio should be 0.5 to 0.6. The load is continuously increased at a constant rate until the failure of the sample occurs within few minutes. So means the load is being applied continuously at a very constant rate until the failure of the sample occurs. Okay, it has to be, load has to be applied or continuously in a uniform way. Next, the loading rate depending on the material and may vary from 10 to 50 kilonewtons per minute. This is what the rate of loading that is being applied while carrying out the test in the laboratory. Next one, the formula. So we are applying the load and it gets failed here. Look at here, we are applying the load and indirect way you are trying to compute the tensile strength of the specimen. And what is the formula now that we'll be using to determine or to calculate the shear tensile strength of the specimen? The tensile strength sigma tau x actually. Tau x is equal to 2p by pi dt. 2p by pi dt, where p is the what, the load applied, d is what, the diameter of the disc that is using for this one. This is sigma x, should be sigma x. Okay, diameter of the what you call circular disc. T is nothing but what, the thickness of the specimen. So this is a very important formula that we'll be using. Okay, both from entrance as well as the examination point of view. What is the formula now? Formula is 2p by the formula for what to calculate the tensile strength of the specimen using Brazilian test is okay 2p by pi dt, where p is the applied load and t is the diameter of the specimen. Sorry, d is the diameter of the specimen and t is the thickness of the what you call the disc, thickness of the disc. Okay, this is about what you call the tensile strength or the indirect method of determination of the tensile strength of the specimen. So far we discussed about what you call how to carry out, how to perform various tests to determine the shear strength of the specimen, like single shear test, double shear test, what you call punch shear test, then oblique shear test. Then we discussed about what you call tensile strength, how to carry out the tensile strength testing of the rock sample, like what you call direct. There are two different methods. One is called direct method, and the second one is called indirect method. In direct method, it requires specially manufactured holding devices, which are very difficult to manufacture, and the load will be applied at the ends of the specimen, which may not give the, because since the load is not acting across the specimen uniformly, so whatever the result that will be getting in direct method, it may not be give exact picture of the tensile strength of the specimen. That's where it's not being used widely used okay in the field. Okay, so due to drawback of this, to overcome this what you call the disadvantage of direct method, the other method that is being in practice is what you call indirect method, which is also known as the Brazilian method. In Brazilian method, even the load applied is of compressive nature. Okay, uh, it is of compressive nature. Look at here. And in indirect way, we are going to calculate what you call the tensile strength of the specimen. Okay, look at here. This is of compressive load we are applying it, and it fails in the middle. And the load, what you call the stress, the stresses that are acting, they are of tensile nature. So in indirect way, we will be determining the tensile strength of the specimen. Okay, this is one of the most practically used method. Okay, to determine the tensile strength of the rock specimen. Okay, the formula used to determine the tensile strength is 2p by pi dt. P is the applied load, d is the diameter of the disc, and the t is the thickness of the specimen. Okay, let's move on. Let us see if time permits. I'll try to cover these also. Uh, what are the factors that influences RMR rating? See here, there are different rock mass classifications that we'll be using in mining. Okay, for effective strata control. These are all what you call, these rock mass ratings are a kind of indices. These rock mass ratings are kind of what? They're kind of indices. Indices nothing but indicators basically, like how exactly the rock behaves under various mining conditions. How exactly the rock mass behaves under various mining conditions. So the following are the various no, okay. Directly came to this. I should have used okay. I'll add them in coming lectures. I would have covered RQD first. Anyway, one of them is what you call the RMR rating. So what are the factors that influences RMR? RMR is nothing but rock mass rating. Rock mass rating, which is the one of what you call most commonly used the rock classification parameter. Rock classification parameter. Okay, mainly in coal mines. Okay, now what are the factors that influences the RMR? First one is uniaxial compressive strength. First one is uniaxial compressive strength. The second parameter is RQD, rock quality designation. So the third parameter is joint spacing. Fourth one is joint condition. Fifth one is joint orientation. Sixth one is groundwater condition. Look at here. If you look at all the 6 parameters, right? Yeah, there are 6 parameters. Most of them are related to joints. Nothing but how exactly the discontinuous in a given rock specimen appears. Okay, it's purely because rock fails at the plane of along the plane of weakness. So if we need to analyze, we need to study more and more on the behavior of the joint surfaces or the weak planes, right? So keeping those things in view, these are all the 6 parameters which basically influences the rock mass rating. RMR, uniaxial compressive strength, RQD, joint spacing, joint conditioning, joint orientation, and the last one is groundwater condition. Okay, so let's move on. Now, those are the 6 parameters. Then we'll discuss what do you call classification of RMR, because we'll be calculating the different values in the laboratory and different based on the values that will be obtaining, the corresponding RMR rating is being given. So if you know the RMR rating, we could able to predict. We should be in a position to predict how exactly it behaves. So this classification gives a brief idea, direct idea, like if you know the index, okay, this is how exactly it is going to predict. That's what exactly this table represents. Look at the classification of RMR, the RMR value and the corresponding description. If the RMR value is lies between 100 to 80, then it is a very good. Next, 80 to 60, it is of good. Next one, 60 to 40, it is of fair. Next, 40 to 20, it is of poor. And less than 20, the rock mass classification is of very poor category. That's how the different categories have been laid out. Next one, the Q system. This is another what you call method of determination of fit. Q system. Q system is nothing but mainly the Q system. Q means quality index or quality system. It is also known as uh, so in Q system is nothing but Q is nothing but the quality system. This is most commonly used, while carrying out the what you call the tunneling operation, like while carrying out the drivage of any tunnels through a hard rock mass. Okay, the rock quality index of the Q system is used for determination of rock mass characteristics. Okay, the Q system is used to determine the types of supports used in tunnels. So the following are the various factors influencing the Q system of classification. One is what? RQD. Second one is what? Joint set number. Third one is what? Joint roughness number. JA is nothing but joint alteration number. Fourth one is what? Joint water condition. And the fifth one is stress reduction factor. These are all the different factors. Okay, different total what you call how many? 6 factors which influences the Q system of classification. If you look at both the systems, RMR and Q system, one factor is common, that is called RQD. Look at here, RQD. RQD is common in both the system of classification. This is very important from what you call entrance point of view. Okay, RQD is the common what you call a parameter in the classification of RMR as well as the Q system. Okay, RQD, joint set number, joint roughness number, joint alteration number, joint water condition, and a stress reduction factor. Stress reduction factor. Let us see what formula. The formula that is used based on those 6 parameters to calculate the value of Q system. So Q system is equal to RQD by joint set number multiplied by joint roughness number by joint alteration number, and again multiplied by joint what you call water condition by stress reduction factor. So this is how the 6 parameters are related in the form of formula. So where Q is equal to, where RQD is equal to rock quality designation, JN is nothing but joint set number, JR is nothing but joint roughness number, J is nothing but joint alteration number, JW is nothing but joint water condition, and SRF is nothing but stress reduction factor. So let us see the Q system classification. So this is what the classification of Q system and the corresponding description. Like if the value of Q system value is 1000 to 400, it is exceptionally good. 400 to 100, within the range of 400 to 100, it is extremely good. And 100 to 40, very good. And 40 to 10, good. And 10 to 4, fair. 4 to 1, poor. And 1 to 0.1, very poor. 0.1 to 0.01, extremely poor. 0.01 to 0.001, exceptionally poor. Okay, and next one, this is another what you call important formula that you might come across in the entrance examination. What is the relation between RMR and Q system? So RMR is equal to 9 log, this is a natural logarithm, log to the base E or ln. It is also represented as a ln. Ln is nothing but natural logarithm. It's not like log to the base 10. No, that is wrong. It is 9 natural logarithm of Q plus 44 or log to the base E. Okay, where RMR is equal to rock mass rating and Q is equal to Q system. Okay, this is what what you call this one. The coming slide, next video lecture, I will be discussing more on what you call the RQD. I forgot to mention the cover as part of this video lecture, which I'll be there. We'll have a recap of this as well as the new topics. Okay, that's all today. Thank you.